So today we're going to look at the transit a little bit and talk about how you can accomplish some of the things this does in your own indirect measurement device you're trying to build, right? So we talked the other day about how we adjust this thing so that the little bubble stays in the middle all the time, right? There's a level, one of these vials right here built into the top of the machine. So, and we know that the level is level when the bubble is centered in the little glass between the two lines, right? Now, most likely, you're not going to have that kind of a mechanism handy to attach to your device. Normally, when we work in the shop, we have a little thing called a bubble level, which works pretty well for our purposes. But we're going to come up with a good improvisation right now. Okay, so now the idea is the reason we want it to be level is that you're going to probably need to measure an elevation. Right, and we talked about using the stadia pole to be able to measure from the horizontal plane. Remember that there's a crosshair inside here, right? Right angle lines going through the center of the scope, and that horizontal crosshair then establishes a horizontal plane all around. You know, looking out through the scope, you can create a horizontal plane. And then you find locations, individual spots in your environment and within your field of view, figure out how far it is from that horizontal line down to the ground, right? And you can then decide if you go to two different spots, okay, maybe here's one spot, and we see how far it is from this spot right here down to the ground, and then we go over there and check that spot, or we sight over there and look at the thing and see, oh, it's, you know, this particular distance from the horizontal line down to the ground. If this spot and that spot are the same, they're the same elevation, right? Assuming we've done a good job of making our instrument look level, this line of sight to be level, then we can know either that this is the same elevation as that one, or one's higher, one's lower, whichever, right? Now, so on your device, I'm just going to, start with this thing right here. Say, I've got this thing, and I could be looking at this edge right here to try to sight. And we were talking about looking up for a given angle and all that kind of stuff, right? Like that what we did with the clinometer, and we would just, kind of line our eye up here and look along there, and that's somewhat accurate, right? Well, one of the things that we want to do is have a more accurate way to zero in on that. And I talked about you could tape on a drinking straw, whatever. Well, of course, and I think I showed you this before, but I'm going to review quickly so that we can have this idea as well. I've got a piece of pipe, right, relatively straight piece of plastic pipe. And if I just have the open pipe, there's definitely a good bit of a variability where the pipe can tilt a little this way or tilt a little that way, and I can still see through it and still see my target, right? And that's not helpful if there's too much ability for the thing to move between and me still be able to see the target. So for me to zero in on my target better, I put some crosshairs on here. I took a small paper clip and cut it up and taped it on here to the end of the pipe, right? Okay, so that helps me zero in. But even with just that, the back end could still move a little bit, and I would, still be able to see the crosshair. Some people, as I mentioned before, have put a second crosshair back here, but I find that to be cumbersome because it's hard to focus your eye on this one and the target, right? So instead, what I've done is to close this up and make a little pinhole in there. You probably can't see it on the camera, but there is a little hole in the tape, You know, you could use a piece of paper on here, whatever you want. Poke a little hole, find something sharp, poke a hole in it. Even like a pencil that's been sharpened really well can allow you to poke a hole in it. And now, believe it or not, I can actually see through that, and I can see myself, you know, looking at the camera, right? And now with this small hole in the back here, there's definitely less space for me to be able to move this thing around. So it forces me to keep my eye right in the middle of the pipe. And then if I line up this with the with my target, I've got a pretty good job of zeroing in on the thing. Now you may not have a piece of pipe handy, right? So you could simply take a piece of paper and roll it up, nice and neat. You can adjust how tight you need it to be, right? And right there, now I have my my sight right here, and I can do all the same things. I can take thread and put it across here to make a crosshair. I can put a piece of tape. I can tape on another piece of paper across the other end of it to make that. What they call that is a peep sight. When you're looking through a tiny hole like that, that's called a peep sight. So you can make a peep sight in the back, crosshair in the front. You could even just put a piece of clear tape over the end and use a Sharpie to draw black lines on it. And that'd be, you know, pretty similar to having the wire. You can use wire, you can use thread, string, whatever. It helps if it's fine, though. It helps if it's thin, right, to make the crosshairs. Okay, so that takes care of how to make the sight on top of the thing. Now here's a way, because you probably don't have a level, you know, attached to your device, here's another method we can use. And I have this edge as my sighting edge, right? Or I'm going to put my pipe on top of this to sight. And I've drawn a line perpendicular to that edge, right? Now I've got a string with some weights hanging on the end. I happen to have a couple big washers I can use for weights, but you could tie just about anything on there or tape something on there as needed, right? This can be a thread. This can be any kind of a thin thing that goes here. Could even be a stick if you needed to. You could, you know, poke a hole through the stick and put a needle through it or something. Just as long as it can freely move, right, with the weight. And now, if I do a really good job of lining up my string here on the line, like that, then that will make this level. Right? That'll. It's not a great way to do it, but it's definitely a good way to do it. Okay. So this thing does hang. You know, when you allow that to hang free, this string is going to hang straight up and down. It's going to naturally create a vertical line. Now the thing to do is try to figure out how to hold it steady, and that'll work there. So now you got the vertical line. You line it up with this line here, or you could, and I thought of this after I had drawn this on here, I could do a little line on either side of the line, you know, two little parallel lines on here, and if I can just carefully line it up between those two parallel lines, that does a pretty good job of making this level. So this could be a thing you create and attach to your device. Make this as part of your device. Same as this level here is part of this device. You could create a setup like this on the side of your device. And then when you go outside to indirectly measure something, put your device on a chair, and then figure out a way to shove like little pieces of wood or some other kind of thin stuff underneath one leg or the other leg of the chair to raise and lower it to make it level. Right? And hopefully then you can create a scenario where when your device is set on 0, this part is level. Right? When your device is set on 0, this part is level. Now if I'm using this, if I'm using this as my sighting device, whether it's, you know, this piece of cardboard, it's got a pipe, whatever, it would go like this, and I have someone else hold a stick for me, right? And I can mark on the stick how high this is from the ground, right? Or how high this line of sight is from the ground wherever that stick is. I can simulate this stadia pole thing if I just have some kind of a tall straight thing, and I say I get my friend to help me, or my relative. I'm looking through the thing, I say, okay, there, I can see the stick, move your finger up and down a little bit. Oh, there it is, your finger's right there on the stick, right? Mark that, and I can go measure that with my ruler later after I know where it hit the stick, right? And I can move that to another spot and do the same thing and see if that spot where they started and the other spot are in the same elevation, right? That can be helpful for your indirect measurement process. Okay, so we have what I'm talking about now. We've got the way to make a good sight, right? Like by taking something round like a pipe or rolled up piece of paper, creating crosshairs and a peep sight for that. And I've got this mechanism here for creating this, making this into a level surface here, you know, positioning it in a way that's level, right? And finally, I've got the stadia pole or some other vertical reference, right? That I can look through my sight, see where it hits the pole, move the pole to a different spot, keeping my sight in the same, either the same location or the same shifting it around but keeping it level. And I can look to the pole again and see if, you know, how that first place compares to the other place in elevation. Okay, and so these things should help you to solve your indirect measurement problem.